Hi, I'm Chloe, and right now, I feel like I'm not enough. Maybe you've felt that way too. Maybe you've been looked at by the people you love, the people who should understand you most, and been told, without words, that you'll never measure up, that you're not the person they wanted you to be. You know that ache? That place inside where you wish you could just make them see? See how hard you're trying, see the person you've become, see how far you've come? I stood there in my kitchen, staring at the phone in my hand as the message from my mother flashed across the screen, cold and dismissive. "We won't be inviting you to Christmas dinner this year. It's just too much with your situation. We'll see you when things settle down." Just those words. Simple, final. And yet they hit me with a force I never saw coming. I had grown used to the disappointments, used to being the one who never quite made it, the one who wasn't quite enough. But this was different. I had always tried to be the good daughter. I took the high road when they looked at me like I was the one who couldn't get it together. I kept my head down, kept working, and hoped that one day, somehow, they would see me differently. They'd understand how much I was sacrificing, working two jobs just to keep the lights on, putting Tyler's needs above my own, always hoping that one day we'd get out of this mess. But that day never came. Instead, it was always something else, something more. More expectations, more disappointment. Too much with your situation. I couldn't believe it. I wanted to cry. I wanted to throw the phone across the room and scream. But I didn't. Not because I couldn't, but because I couldn't afford to. Not with Tyler in the other room. "Mom?" Tyler's voice came from the kitchen table, small and uncertain. I looked over at him. His eyes, always so wise for his age, studied me carefully. "You okay?" I bit my lip, forcing a smile. "Yeah, just fine, honey." But I wasn't fine. I was broken. I was tired. And this wasn't just about being left out of some Christmas dinner. It was about everything. Everything that had been building up inside me for years. Why was I never good enough for them? I set the phone down on the counter, staring at the glowing screen. For as long as I could remember, my family had always been perfect. My parents, Janet and Doug, had their pristine home, their successful careers, their friends. They always showed up at every family gathering, looking put together, pristine, never a wrinkle in their lives. And then there was me. I didn't have $1 million career. I didn't have the perfect husband. I wasn't part of the perfect family. I had nothing except Tyler, and that was the one thing that kept me going. And yet, that wasn't enough for them, was it? I could hear the faint sound of Tyler's toys upstairs. My son, my bright, caring 12-year-old boy, the only person who truly understood me. He didn't care about the mess or the stress or the lack of a fancy car. All he cared about was that I was his mom, and that was enough for him. He believed in me. I reached for the coffee cup, my hands shaking slightly, and took a sip, the warmth doing little to calm the storm inside me. The storm that had been brewing for years. The storm of feeling second-rate to everyone, especially Adam, my older brother, who seemed to have it all. Always perfect, always praised, always the better child. As if that wasn't enough, this year it had been worse. The calls, the snide remarks, the constant comparisons between me and Adam. It wasn't even subtle anymore. "Why don't you just ask Adam for some help?" my mother had said, more than once. "He's doing so well. Maybe he could lend you some money until things get better." The truth was, Adam had never once helped me. Oh, he might have offered a few hollow words of comfort, but when it came down to it, he didn't want to be dragged down by me. Not when he was living his picture-perfect life with his perfect job, perfect wife, and perfect house in the city. I felt my breath catch. That familiar sting crept back into my chest. I could already see my mother's face as she typed that message, the cool indifference, the quiet judgment, and the finality of it. I turned away from the counter and walked into the living room, my feet heavy on the hardwood floor. The room was quiet, save for the soft ticking of the clock on the wall and the faint sound of Tyler humming to himself upstairs. I should have been grateful for him, for everything he was, for everything we had. But right then, all I felt was the weight of my own failure. I sank down onto the couch, my mind racing. What was I supposed to do? How was I supposed to keep going when the people I loved most, the ones who should have supported me, kept pushing me further away? That was when it hit me. This rejection, wasn't just about Christmas dinner. This was about something much deeper, something that had been simmering inside me for far too long. I was tired of being the afterthought, tired of being the screw-up. The truth was, I had been living in the shadow of my family's expectations for too long. I had been trying to make them proud, trying to fit into a mold they'd created for me, but it wasn't working. Not anymore. I was done. I couldn't keep living this way. For the first time, a new thought settled in my mind. What if I didn't need their approval? What if I didn't need their validation to succeed? What if I could finally start living for myself? I stood up, wiping my hands on my jeans. There was no more waiting for things to get better. No more pretending like I could somehow make them see my worth. I had a son who needed me. I had a future to build. And no one was going to stop me from getting it. The message from my mom had lingered in my mind for days. It was hard to shake off, hard to even think clearly when it seemed like the rejection wasn't just a seasonal thing. It was a part of something deeper, something I had been holding on to for far too long. The illusion that my family could ever truly see me for who I was. In the dim light of the early morning, I found myself standing at the kitchen counter once again, staring at the pile of bills that had been growing over the past few months. There were letters from the electric company, reminders for the mortgage, a notice about my credit card balance. The usual. Things I didn't have the luxury to ignore. Things that seemed to multiply overnight no matter how hard I worked. I sighed and rubbed my eyes. Tyler was still asleep upstairs. The silence of the house felt suffocating, and it was moments like this, moments when it was just me and the weight of everything around me, that I wondered if I was ever going to get out of this mess. But then, in that moment, something shifted inside of me. I had been so focused on my family's rejection, on trying to get their approval, that I had forgotten about my own. I had forgotten what I was capable of when I took control. They had always seen me as the lesser sibling, the one who wasn't successful, the one who couldn't get it together. But maybe that was just the way they wanted to see me. Maybe, for all their talk of success and perfection, they had failed to see something more important, that I was capable of so much more than they ever gave me credit for. It was time to stop letting their judgment define me. That afternoon, after Tyler was off at school, I sat down at the computer and started researching. I didn't know exactly where to begin, but I knew I couldn't keep going the way I had been. I couldn't just let my family's words and the constant worry about money consume me. I needed to do something for myself, something that didn't rely on anyone else. I thought about my teaching job and how much I loved it, but it didn't pay enough. And then I thought about the side hustle I'd tried a few months back, helping local businesses with their online presence. It wasn't much, but I had enjoyed it. Maybe there was something there. I could use my skills, the ones I had built up over the years, to start something of my own. Something independent. I didn't have much to invest, but I knew I had to try. The next few days were a whirlwind of late nights, research, and planning. It wasn't easy. There were moments when I wanted to give up. There were doubts, constant doubts. Who was I kidding? I wasn't some tech genius. I wasn't someone who was meant to succeed. But then I remembered the message from my mom. I remembered how they had made me feel, like I wasn't enough. And that was the fuel I needed. I'm not doing this for them, I muttered to myself one night, typing away at my computer. I'm doing this for me. A week later, I found myself at a small cafe in town, meeting with Rachel. Rachel was someone I'd known from college, a classmate who had always been ambitious, always driven. She had started her own real estate business and had been incredibly successful. We'd kept in touch on social media over the years, and when I'd mentioned I was thinking about starting my own business, she'd reached out, offering advice. Sitting across from her now, I could tell she was trying to size me up. She had this way of looking at people, as if she could see through all the pretenses, all the doubts. Her sharp eyes missed nothing. "So, what's the plan?" she asked, sipping her coffee. I hesitated. "I want to start a consulting business, helping small businesses with their marketing, getting them noticed online. But I don't know if I can make it work. I'm not exactly rolling in cash, you know?" Rachel raised an eyebrow, her lips curling into a smile. "Who is? You think I had money when I started? You have the skills. That's what matters. You just need to go for it." I nodded slowly, feeling a spark of hope flicker inside me. Rachel's confidence was contagious. "I don't know. It just feels like there's always something standing in the way." She leaned forward, her tone growing more serious. "That's how it is for everyone. There's always going to be an excuse, a reason to not do it. But if you want it, you've got to go for it. And you're not going to get it if you keep worrying about how your family sees you." Her words hit me hard, but they also lit a fire. Rachel had started with nothing. No one had handed her anything. And if she could do it, maybe I could too. That night, after Tyler was asleep, I stayed up late drafting a business plan. I couldn't afford to waste any more time. I had to make something happen, and it wasn't going to be easy. But I was ready. The next morning, I got an email from an old acquaintance, Elliot, a businessman who had been a guest speaker at a local marketing seminar a few years back. I hadn't thought much of him at the time, but he was now a successful investor. He had heard about my work and wanted to meet with me about a potential business opportunity. I stared at the email for a moment, disbelief coursing through me. This could be it. This could be the break I needed. "Tyler, we're going to make this work," I whispered to myself, my heart racing. "We're going to make it happen." The next few weeks passed in a blur. I met with Elliot, who ended up offering me a partnership in a new project, a startup focused on marketing for small businesses. He had been impressed with my work and saw potential. He was willing to invest, but there were conditions. I would need to work with a team and be accountable for my share of the business. It was a gamble, a big one, but it was the chance I needed. I signed the contract, promising myself that this would be the turning point. That night, as I lay in bed, I thought about the message from my mom. It still stung, but something inside me had shifted. I no longer cared about their approval. I was done trying to fit into their mold. This was about me now. I pulled the covers tighter around me and smiled. I'm going to make this work. For me. For Tyler. The moment Chloe signed the contract with Elliot, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders. There was no turning back now. But as the days passed, that initial rush of excitement began to fade, replaced by the grinding reality of what she had committed to. It was one thing to dream, but another entirely to bring those dreams into the world, where every decision felt like it could make or break her future. Her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter, interrupting her thoughts. It was a message from Rachel. "Meeting at 3 p.m. today. Don't be late." Chloe quickly typed a reply, her fingers hesitating for a moment before hitting send. "I'll be there." She had to admit, the nerves were starting to settle in. She had never been one to take such big risks, especially with Tyler depending on her. But Rachel's voice, her confidence, had reminded Chloe that she wasn't doing this for anyone else anymore. She was doing it for herself, and maybe, just maybe, that was the key to everything. The cafe where Rachel had asked to meet was small and intimate, with exposed brick walls and warm wooden tables. Chloe walked in and spotted her friend almost immediately, sitting near the back, a laptop open in front of her, her usual professional air about her. Rachel looked up as Chloe approached and smiled. "I've been thinking about you. You seem different." Chloe couldn't help but smile back. She didn't feel different, but something about Rachel's energy made her believe that maybe she was changing, even if only a little bit. "I guess I am," Chloe said, sitting down. "I'm in deep now, aren't I?" Rachel laughed softly. Oh, you're in deep. But that's the point, right? You wanted this. You need this. You're not going to be stuck in the same place forever unless you allow it. And I don't think you're the type to let that happen. The words resonated with Chloe more than she wanted to admit. She had spent so long playing small, hiding behind the shadows of her family's expectations and the suffocating comfort of routine. Now, with this new venture, she was stepping into the light, facing her fears and uncertainties head on. Okay, Chloe said, pulling her phone out. So, where do we start? Rachel spent the next hour helping Chloe draft a business plan, guiding her through the ins and outs of managing a startup, from setting goals to finding potential clients. It was overwhelming, but exhilarating at the same time. Chloe took notes furiously, jotting down ideas, questions, and strategies. By the time they finished, the sun had begun to dip lower in the sky, casting a golden glow over the city street outside. Chloe had a new sense of purpose that she hadn't felt in years. She knew the road ahead would be filled with challenges, but she finally felt like she was moving in the right direction. But the journey wasn't going to be easy. She couldn't escape the reality of her situation. Money was still tight. Tyler needed school supplies. Rent was due. And she had no guarantees that her business would take off as quickly as she hoped. Thanks for all this, Rachel, Chloe said, standing up to leave. I really needed the push. Rachel's smile softened. You don't need me. You've always had it in you. You just needed to believe it. The following week, Chloe met with several local businesses, offering her marketing consulting services. The first few meetings were nerve-wracking, her voice trembling as she pitched her ideas, second-guessing every word that left her mouth. But something shifted as she kept going. With each presentation, she became more confident, more certain that she could make this work. Then, one day, a breakthrough. A small family-owned bakery, Sweet Haven, agreed to sign a contract with Chloe. The owner, Maria, was a warm woman who had struggled with marketing her shop effectively. Chloe saw the potential immediately. She could help her. She would help her. The contract wasn't big, but it was a start. Chloe's first official client. As she left the bakery, walking down the sunlit street, she felt a rush of pride. She was making it happen. Slowly, surely, one step at a time. That night, Chloe sat at the kitchen table, reviewing her business plan again, trying to carve out a roadmap for the future. Tyler had gone to bed early that night, and the house was quiet. For the first time in a long while, Chloe didn't feel overwhelmed. She wasn't lost in the sea of responsibilities that had defined her life for so long. She had a sense of direction, a sense of purpose. But then, the phone buzzed again. This time, it was a message from Adam. Mom and Dad are asking why you haven't been around. You haven't answered their calls. I told them I would check in with you. Chloe's fingers froze over the phone screen. The irritation flared up almost immediately. She had been avoiding her parents' calls for weeks now, not because she didn't care, but because every conversation left her feeling like she wasn't enough. Every time they asked about her finances, about her plans, it felt like an interrogation, a reminder that she would never live up to their expectations. She wanted to ignore the message, let it slide. But then her thoughts drifted back to their conversation at the family gathering, the way her mom had casually dismissed her. The rejection she felt, not just for not being invited to the dinner, but for years of feeling inferior. Chloe typed quickly, her fingers almost flying over the screen. I'm busy. Please don't tell them I'm doing fine. I don't need their judgment. She paused before sending, her thumb hovering over the screen. She could feel the weight of years of strained family dynamics, the years of trying to please people who would never accept her. But for the first time, Chloe wasn't asking for permission. She wasn't looking for validation. She was living for herself. Finally, she hit send and set the phone down. The next day, Chloe received a call from her lawyer. The bakery, Sweet Haven, had signed the contract. And it was official. She had her first client. She had done it. It wasn't just the business that felt like a victory. It was her belief in herself. Finally, after all these years. The morning was gray. the clouds thick and low, as if the sky itself was mourning something unseen. Chloe stood in front of her bathroom mirror, staring at her reflection. She had woken up early, the usual weight of uncertainty pressing down on her chest. She had become used to this feeling, the slow churn of doubt that crept into her mind every time she took another step forward. But this morning felt different. In the last few months, Chloe had made strides. Small, sure, but meaningful. Her consulting business was picking up. She had secured 3 more clients, including Sweet Haven Bakery, whose marketing campaigns had already begun showing impressive results. Business was moving forward, but she knew it wasn't enough yet. Not to prove her worth to her family, not yet. She still had a long way to go. Then, there was the call she received from Elliot the night before. "Chloe," he'd said, his voice steady and confident, "I want to take you on as a full partner in the venture. You've earned it. We're not just talking small scale anymore. I'm bringing you in on a project that will change everything for both of us." Elliot was a successful investor, someone who could make or break careers with one decision. But now, he was offering Chloe a lifeline. The private jet, Elliot's private jet, was part of the deal. He was taking her with him on a business trip to the West Coast to meet potential investors. This was a big step. But as Chloe dressed in a sharp business suit, her first real splurge, one she'd bought with the first payment from her client, she couldn't shake the feeling of being a fraud. What did she know about this world? The world of wealth, power, and success? She had spent so many years feeling like an outsider, watching her brother, Adam, thrive while she struggled to stay afloat. Would they see her as a fraud, too? Would they see the woman who once couldn't even afford to make rent? She ran a hand through her hair, steadying herself. "I deserve this," she whispered to the empty room. She had fought too hard, come too far to let insecurities rob her of this moment. The ride to the private airport was quiet. Elliot's driver, a tall man in a black suit, drove them through the empty streets, the quiet hum of the engine filling the air. Chloe couldn't stop fidgeting with her hands, twisting her fingers together as she tried to calm her racing thoughts. Elliot, on the other hand, was calm, his usual sharp demeanor unchanged as he glanced at his phone, checking messages with the ease of someone who had mastered this world of business and high stakes. "You know," he said, breaking the silence, "I don't bring just anyone with me on these trips. I see potential in you, Chloe. You've got drive. That's rare." Chloe forced a smile. "Thanks, I still can't believe I'm here." Elliot looked up from his phone and gave her a quick glance. "You belong here. Don't doubt it. Now, get ready for the next step. This is your chance to prove to yourself what you're really capable of." The private jet loomed ahead as they arrived at the small, exclusive airport. Chloe's breath caught in her throat as she looked at it. It was sleek, impressive, everything she wasn't. She swallowed hard, trying to steady her racing heart. The flight was smooth, the kind of calm that only comes from the rarefied air of private jets. Chloe tried to focus on the work at hand, the presentation she had prepared for the potential investors. She had spent days perfecting the slides, rehearsing the pitch, but as they ascended higher into the sky, her mind kept drifting back to that message from Adam she had received weeks ago. "Mom and Dad are asking why you haven't been around. You haven't answered their calls. I told them I would check in with you." Her hands tightened around her coffee cup, the bitterness of it matching the ache in her chest. Why did Adam care now? Was it genuine concern, or was it just another way to make her feel inferior? For years, he had played the role of the perfect son, the golden child. He had everything, the house, the money, the perfect wife, the perfect life. And for years, Chloe had lived in the shadow of his success, constantly told she wasn't good enough, constantly reminded that no matter how hard she worked, she would always be the lesser sibling. The jet's hum filled the silence, and Chloe's thoughts darkened. If only they could see me now. Suddenly, Elliot turned to her, snapping her out of her thoughts. "You're quiet today. Got something on your mind?" Chloe hesitated, unsure whether to say anything. The words about Adam were on the tip of her tongue, but she swallowed them back. This wasn't the time. She was here for a reason. "I'm fine," she said, forcing a smile. "Just thinking." Elliot raised an eyebrow. "Well, whatever it is, leave it behind. Right now, you're part of something much bigger than any family drama. You're building your future. Don't let anything hold you back." His words hit harder than she expected. For years, she had let her family's judgment control her decisions, let their expectations weigh her down. But now, she had a chance to break free, to prove to herself that she was more than what they thought of her. The meeting with the investors went better than Chloe could have imagined. She was sharp, confident, answering questions with the ease of someone who had been doing this for years. She knew her stuff. She had prepared. And now, as the meeting ended, she couldn't help but feel a sense of pride swelling within her. Elliot was impressed. "You did great, Chloe," he said as they stepped out of the boardroom. "That was a solid pitch. These investors don't just sign on with anyone, but they're intrigued by what you have to offer." Chloe's heart raced. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she was finally being recognized for what she was capable of. Not as someone's daughter or someone's sister, but as Chloe, the woman who had fought tooth and nail to get to this point. As the jet touched down back at the airport later that evening, Chloe's mind was buzzing with possibilities. She had made it. She had shown them that she was more than the woman they had all written off. She wasn't just the broken-down single mom trying to make ends meet. She was an entrepreneur, a force to be reckoned with. But as they pulled into the tarmac, ready to head back to the city, Chloe's phone buzzed again. This time, it was her mother. "You need to come over tomorrow. It's been too long. We need to talk." Chloe stared at the message, feeling that familiar rush of anxiety. But this time, there was something different. She wasn't afraid anymore. She wasn't afraid to stand up for herself. She wasn't afraid of what they thought. And this time, she would go to that meeting on her own terms. The day Chloe stepped into her parents' house again was unlike any other. The house was quieter than she remembered. Almost too quiet, like a pressure was building inside the walls. Her steps echoed on the hardwood floor as she walked through the front door, the familiar smell of her mother's cooking wafting from the kitchen. But it wasn't the food that made her stomach churn. It was the silence in the air, the tension that wrapped itself around her chest like a vice. "Mom? Dad?" Chloe called out, her voice more confident than she felt. Her mother, Janet, appeared in the kitchen doorway a moment later, wiping her hands on a dish towel. Her face, usually so carefully composed, seemed strained. There were bags under her eyes, and her smile was tight, like she was forcing it. "Chloe," she said, her voice stiff, as if unsure how to greet her. "It's been a while. We were starting to worry about you." Chloe didn't respond immediately. She didn't want to get drawn into the guilt-tripping game. The weight of their disapproval hung between them, heavier than the years of strained conversations. But Chloe wasn't the same woman she had been the last time she walked through this door. Her father, Doug, entered from the living room, his hands in his pockets. He gave her a tight-lipped smile and a brief nod. "Chloe," he said, his voice low, "we've been meaning to talk. About everything." Chloe felt her stomach tighten. She had been dreading this. The talk was never about anything good. It was always about how she could be doing better, how she could fix her life. But this time, things had changed. "I'm sure you have," Chloe replied, her voice steady, though her nerves were on edge. "But I think I should be the one doing the talking." Janet and Doug exchanged a glance. Chloe could see the confusion in their eyes, the disappointment they weren't even trying to hide anymore. "You're doing well now?" Janet asked, her voice tight with something that sounded like skepticism but wasn't quite disbelief. "I am," Chloe said, taking a step forward. "I'm doing better than I ever thought I would, actually." A small, unexpected rush of pride filled Chloe as she said it. She had worked for this. She had fought for it. And now, she was standing in front of her parents, ready to prove that she was more than the woman they had written off. Janet pursed her lips, glancing at Doug. I see you've been busy. But, Chloe, she continued, her voice softening just a fraction, you know it hasn't been easy for us. It hasn't been easy on the family. Chloe's heart clenched at the words. This wasn't the apology she had hoped for. It wasn't even close. It was the same old story. They couldn't see past their own expectations to see what she had actually accomplished. You know what? I don't need your approval anymore, Chloe said, her voice rising despite herself. I've spent so many years trying to fit into your mold, trying to meet your expectations. And it's never been enough. It was never going to be enough, was it? Doug's face hardened at her words, his eyes narrowing. Chloe, you don't understand. No, you don't understand, Chloe cut in, her chest tightening with a mix of anger and determination. I've been fighting for years, trying to prove myself to both of you, and for what? To be told that I'm still not enough? To be told that my success doesn't matter unless it's the way you want it? She felt her voice shaking, but she refused to back down. I'm not that woman anymore, Chloe continued, her breath quickening. I'm not the woman who bends and pleases everyone else. I'm done asking for your validation. This is my life, and I'm going to live it on my own terms. A long silence followed, thick and suffocating. Janet's face was pale, her lips pressed together in a thin line. Doug's eyes were dark, like he was holding back something. For a moment, Chloe thought he might say something, but he just stood there, staring at her, as if unsure what to say next. And that was the point, wasn't it? Chloe had been waiting for them to understand, to see her for who she really was. But maybe that would never happen. Maybe it was time to stop waiting. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, cutting through the tension. Chloe glanced at the screen. Elliot. It was like a signal, a lifeline. She needed to leave. She needed to move on. Look, Chloe said, pulling her phone from her pocket and glancing at the message. I don't have time for this right now. I'm not going to apologize for who I am or what I'm doing anymore. I'm sorry if that's hard for you to accept, but this is who I am. With that, she turned on her heel, heading for the door. She couldn't stay here any longer, not when she could feel the walls closing in. She couldn't let her parents, or anyone, dictate her life any longer. As Chloe walked out the door, she breathed in the fresh air like it was the first breath of freedom she'd had in years. It wasn't just the physical space, it was the mental space, the liberation from the suffocating weight of her family's expectations. Her phone buzzed again. This time, it was from Tyler. How's the meeting going, Mom? You doing okay? Chloe smiled as she read the message. The simple words from her son filled her heart with warmth. This was why she was fighting, for Tyler, for her future. She typed back quickly. I'm doing great, sweetie. Got some big things happening. Can't wait to tell you about it when I get home. Chloe had been riding high on the wave of success, but the phone call from Elliot knocked her back to reality. Chloe, I need to be up front with you. The investor deal, it's fallen through. We're not moving forward. Her heart dropped, and the words felt like they were choking her. She had put everything into this. Her time, her energy, her dreams. And now, just like that, it was slipping through her fingers. The rug had been pulled out from under her. The next few days were filled with silence. Emails went unanswered. The calls that had once flooded in now felt like echoes. Chloe's phone, once buzzing with business opportunities, now sat empty. Her business was faltering, and so was her confidence. Then Tyler walked in, holding his report card. His grades weren't bad, but his face told a different story. Mom, I think I've been messing up, he said softly. Chloe looked at the grades, a few B's, a C. It's fine, Tyler, she said, but she couldn't ignore the knot in her stomach. We'll work through it. Tyler shook his head. It's not just the grades, you're always on the phone. I can tell you're stressed. Her chest tightened. Her son could feel it. She had been so focused on proving herself, on fixing everything, that she hadn't realized how it was affecting him. He wasn't the cause of her stress, but the weight of it was crushing her now. The setback wasn't just about business. It was the realization that her drive had come at the cost of what mattered most. Chloe knew she needed to change her approach. But how? Chloe stood in front of the familiar door of her parents' house, her hand hovering over the doorknob. It felt like a lifetime since she had walked through this door, but this time it was different. She wasn't here to apologize, to explain herself. She was here to take the final step in reclaiming her life. No more guilt, no more seeking approval. When the door opened, her mother's face was a mix of surprise and something else. Resentment? Regret? Chloe couldn't tell. But she wasn't backing down this time. "I thought we could talk," Janet said, her voice softer than usual, but still carrying that underlying judgment. "I don't need your approval anymore, Mom," Chloe said, stepping into the house, her voice firm. "I've spent my whole life trying to make you happy, but now I'm doing it for me." Janet's mouth opened, but no words came out. Chloe's father appeared from the living room, his expression just as unreadable. "I've built something on my own," Chloe continued, her heart racing but her words clear. "I've learned to trust myself, to stop worrying about what others think of me. I'm proud of where I am now, and I won't apologize for it anymore." There was a long silence. Janet's eyes flickered with something like pain, but Chloe wasn't looking for pity. She was looking for respect. "Chloe," Doug finally spoke, his voice strained. "It's not about approval. It's just, we don't understand this life you've built. We just want you to be safe, to be—" "Happy?" Chloe interrupted. "I'm happy. For the first time, I'm really living, and I'm not letting anyone, even you, stand in the way of that." Her parents exchanged a glance, and for a moment, Chloe thought they might say something else, something that would try to pull her back into the fold. But then, her phone buzzed. It was a message from Tyler. "I'm really proud of you, Mom. I can see how hard you're working. I believe in you." Chloe blinked back a sudden wave of emotion. This was why she was fighting. Not for her parents' approval, not for the business deals or the success, but for Tyler, for herself. She had to get this right, for both of them. "I'm not going to beg for acceptance," she said, turning away from her parents. "I've made my peace with who I am." As she left the house, Chloe felt a weight lift off her shoulders. She wasn't the same woman who had walked through this door years ago, unsure of her worth. She was stronger, more grounded, and most importantly, she was free. As I reflect on everything I've been through, I've realized that the real battle was never about proving anything to my family, my clients, or anyone else. It was about proving to myself that I am enough. There are moments in life when everything seems to be falling apart, and it feels like the world is telling you, you can't do this. But trust me, you can. Every failure, every setback, is just another step toward the person you're meant to become. No one else can define your worth but you. It's easy to get caught up in what others think or expect, but the only opinion that truly matters is your own. Keep pushing forward, believe in yourself, and never let anyone make you feel small. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever faced a situation where you had to choose yourself over someone else's expectations? How did you handle it? Share your thoughts with me in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. If this video touched you, hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. Stay tuned for more stories, and let's keep growing together. Thanks for watching.